I didn't say a word when my brother called to tell me what they'd done. I just sat there at my kitchen table in Chicago, holding my phone, watching my coffee go cold. That was 3 weeks ago. I'm still processing it. Let me back up. I grew up in a house where the rules were never written down, but everyone knew them. My brother was the one our parents talked about at dinner parties. My brother was the one whose report cards got put on the refrigerator. My brother was the phone call they made when something good happened in the family. I was the one they called when something needed doing. His name came up in every conversation I had with my parents for the first 22 years of my life. Mine came up in theirs maybe twice. I'm 31 now. I work as a licensed CPA at a mid-sized firm in Lincoln Park. I have a one-bedroom apartment I pay for myself, a 401(a). I started at 24 and a savings account I've been building since my first job at 17, when I used to babysit the neighbors' kids for $12 an hour and deposit every single dollar. I didn't grow up with money. I grew up watching what happens when you don't have it. And I decided pretty young that was never going to be me. My brother is 34. He went to a better college than I did. Our parents were sure of that. They co-signed his private student loans, drove him to campus, helped him furnish his apartment. When I left for school, I took a Greyhound bus with 2 duffel bags and a financial aid package I'd spent 6 months fighting for. Nobody waved goodbye from the driveway. I don't say any of this to make you feel sorry for me. I'm past that. I said it because you need to understand the foundation before you understand what happened when it cracked. My parents and I had what I would describe as a managed distance relationship for most of my adult life. I called on holidays. I visited at Christmas, sometimes Thanksgiving. We didn't fight. We didn't dig things up. We kept it civil and surface level, which suited everyone fine, until about 3 years ago, when my dad retired and my mother's health started slipping. And suddenly the surface level wasn't enough to hold them anymore. The calls started getting longer. The questions started getting more specific. How's work? Are you still doing well? You must be making good money by now. I always answered carefully. I said things were fine. I didn't volunteer numbers. I'm an accountant. I know how information gets used. My brother called me one Tuesday evening in September. He said our parents needed help. He said our dad's retirement accounts had taken a hit, some bad investments he didn't want to go into detail about, and that a balloon payment on their home equity line of credit was coming due in 30 days, $22,000. He said our mother had asked him to reach out to me because she was too embarrassed to do it herself. I sat with that for a second. How much do they need? I asked. All of it, he said, or they could lose the house. I asked him what he knew about the investments. He said he wasn't sure of the details. I asked if he'd seen the loan documents. He said he hadn't. I asked if he had the account number for the payment. He said he'd text it to me. He texted me a routing number and an account number 10 minutes later with a note that said they need it by Friday if possible. It's really urgent. Here is where I want to be honest with you about something. I'm a CPA. I have spent my entire adult life watching people make emotional financial decisions and then watching those decisions fall apart. I know better than almost anyone how urgency gets manufactured to bypass your better judgment. I know that real emergencies almost always have paper trails and that paper trails can be shared. But these were my parents, and underneath all of that professional detachment was still the kid who spent her whole childhood trying to prove she was worth something to those 2 people. And some part of me, the part I don't talk about very often, thought that if I did this, if I came through when no one expected me to, maybe something would shift. Maybe they'd see me differently. I transferred $22,000 on a Thursday morning. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't ask for documentation first. I told myself I'd request it after once things settled down. My brother texted back almost immediately, "They're so grateful. Really, thank you." My parents didn't call. Not that day, not the next day, not the day after that. I waited a week before I texted my mother directly. I said I hoped things had worked out and that I'd love to talk when she had a chance. She left it on read for 4 days, then replied with a single line, "We're doing okay, honey. Thank you." That was it. No call, no follow-up, no acknowledgement of what I'd sent. I told myself people handle stress differently. I told myself she was probably still embarrassed. I gave it another 2 weeks. Then I pulled up the account information my brother had texted me and I ran it. The routing number was real. It was a valid bank, but the account number itself. I have enough familiarity with financial systems to know how to look things up. And what I found was that the account receiving that transfer was not a mortgage servicer or a lender. It was a personal checking account. I couldn't see whose name was on it. But I knew what it wasn't. I sat at my desk for a long time. Then I called my brother. He didn't answer. I called again. He didn't answer. I texted him and said I had some questions about the account details and could he call me back. He texted an hour later, "Hey, swamped at work, can I call you this weekend?" I said, "Sure." Then I called my parents' landline, which I hadn't dialed in probably 2 years. My dad picked up on the second ring. He sounded normal. He sounded fine. He asked how I was doing, how work was going, whether Chicago had gotten cold yet. I said, "Dad, I want to make sure the payment went through okay. Did the lender confirm receipt?" There was a pause. "Oh, your brother handled all of that," he said. "I think everything's fine." "Can you send me the loan statement?" I said. "The one showing the balloon payment. I'd just like to have it for my records." Another pause. Longer this time. "I'd have to dig that out," he said. "I'm not sure where your mother keeps those things." "I can wait," I said. He said he'd look into it and get back to me. He never did. That was a Friday. By Monday, I had made a decision. I am not an investigator, but I am someone who knows how to find public records. And I know that real estate transactions, including foreclosure proceedings, liens, and HELOC balances, are often a matter of public record at the county level. My parents live in a suburb outside of Columbus, Ohio. I looked up their property. I found the deed. I found the mortgage history. There was no balloon payment recorded, no HELOC in default, no pending foreclosure action. The house had a standard 30-year mortgage, taken out in 2003, with a remaining balance of under $40,000. The payments were current. My parents were not about to lose their house. I closed my laptop and I went for a walk around the block, even though it was 40 degrees and raining, because I needed to be somewhere other than inside my own head. When I got back, I called my brother again. This time he picked up. "Hey," he said. "Sorry I missed you. It's been a week." "Where did that money go?" I said. Silence. "What do you mean?" he said. "I checked the property records," I said. "There's no HELOC balloon. There's no delinquency. The house is fine. So I need to know where $22,000 went." He didn't say anything for a long time. "I didn't know the details," he finally said. "Mom asked me to reach out to you and I. Did you know there was no balloon payment?" I said. More silence. "I didn't look into it," he said. I took their word for it." I sat with that. I decided to believe him, at least partially, because what came next is the part that made everything else make sense. "Is there something going on with them financially?" I asked. "Something real? Not a made-up emergency? Something actual?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he said very quietly, "I think Dad's been gambling." I closed my eyes. "How long?" I said. "I don't know. A few years maybe. I noticed some things last Christmas and I didn't want to believe it. He had a lot of cash on him one day and then the next day he didn't. There were some phone calls he kept stepping outside to take. Mom knows, I think. Or she knows something is wrong. And she's not asking questions she doesn't want answered. So they needed $22,000 to cover gambling losses." I said. "I genuinely didn't know that's what it was," he said. "I promise. I thought it was the house." "I didn't." He stopped. "I'm sorry. I should have asked more questions before I called you." I should have pushed them. Here is the thing about my brother that is complicated to explain. He is not a bad person. He was raised to be the one who got things, and I was raised to be the one who gave them, and he spent so many years on the receiving end that I don't think he ever developed the reflex to question it. He's not mean. He's not calculating. He's just soft in the places where I was forced to grow hard, and I don't hold that against him entirely, because it wasn't his choice either. Our parents built us both. They just built us differently. But I was still out $22,000. And I was still furious. I told my brother I needed a few days to think. I hung up, and I sat at my kitchen table, and I wrote down everything I knew in the Notes app on my phone, in the order I knew it, with the dates attached. I have a habit of documentation. It comes from years of working in tax and compliance. If something matters, you write it down with a timestamp. I had the text from my brother with the routing and account number. I had my own bank transfer records showing the date and amount sent. I had the county property records showing no delinquency. I had my father's vague, evasive responses when I asked for documentation. I had my mother's silence. What I didn't have was enough to do anything with yet. I took a week. I went back to work. I did what I always do, which is channel everything into something productive, because falling apart is a luxury I've never been able to afford. Then one evening, I was cooking dinner, and my phone rang, and it was a number I didn't recognize. A Columbus area code. I almost let it go to voicemail. Something made me pick up. It was my brother. He was calling from a different phone. "I need to tell you something," he said, "and I need you to not be angry at me while I tell you." I said, "Try me." He said that after our conversation, he'd gone to our parents' house. He said he'd sat down with our mother while our dad was out, and he'd asked her directly what was going on. He said she'd cried for about 15 minutes, and then she'd told him everything. Our dad had been gambling for almost 6 years. Sports betting, mostly? Apps and an account at a place about 40 minutes from their house that he drove to every few weeks. He'd burned through most of his retirement savings over the last 2 years. He'd taken out a personal loan in both their names about 8 months ago without telling her the full reason. He owed at that moment somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 in total across multiple accounts and obligations. The $22,000 he'd gotten from me had gone to pay down part of one of those debts. Not a mortgage, a bookie essentially. Someone who had started making calls to the house. My mother knew enough to know there were problems. She hadn't known the full number until my brother sat in front of her and asked her to show him the statements. I listened to all of this without saying anything. When my brother finished, I asked, "Does she want help?" He said, "She doesn't know what she wants. She's scared." I said, "Okay. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to send you 3 names. They're gambling addiction resources, including one that specifically works with families of problem gamblers. I'm going to send you contact information for a family law attorney in Columbus who can advise my mother on her options regarding the personal loan. And I am going to send you a letter, written, not verbal, that I need both of them to receive because I need what I'm about to say to be documented." My brother was quiet for a moment. "What's the letter going to say?" he asked. "That I love them," I said, "and that I'm not sending another dollar, and that if they contact me requesting money in the future without full documentation of the need, bank statements, loan documents, official correspondence, I will not respond, and that the $22,000 is a loan, not a gift, and I will be requesting repayment in writing." "Do you think they'll actually pay you back?" he asked. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I'm going to make sure there's a record that it's owed." I wrote the letter that night. 3 paragraphs, no anger in it, or at least none I let show. I stated the facts as I knew them. I stated my conditions. I said I hoped they would get help and that I would support that process if they chose to pursue it. but that supporting them emotionally was different from being a financial resource, and I was no longer available to be the latter. I emailed it to both of them and CC'd my brother. My dad called me 12 hours later. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail that was tense. He said I was being cold and that family doesn't treat each other like business transactions. He said he was going through something difficult and he needed support, not a formal letter. I did not call him back. My mother texted me 2 days later. She said she was sorry. She said she hadn't known how bad it had gotten and that she was ashamed. She said she didn't blame me for being upset. I called her back for that one. We talked for 45 minutes. It was the most honest conversation I have ever had with my mother in my life. She cried. I didn't, but I wanted to. Not out of sadness exactly, but out of something more complicated, some grief for all the years we'd spent not talking like this. She told me that my dad had always struggled with impulse control, that there had been smaller incidents when I was young that I didn't know about. She said she'd covered for him more times than she could count, and that it had become its own kind of habit. She said she didn't know who to call because she was embarrassed, and when my dad had suggested reaching out to me through my brother, she hadn't stopped it because she was desperate. I know that's not an excuse, she said. No, I said, it's not. I'm sorry we asked you for it, she said. I'm sorry we didn't tell you the truth. I told her I'd send her the resources my brother already had. I told her that I meant what I'd said in the letter, that I loved them and I wasn't disappearing. But I wasn't a bank either, and that if my dad wanted a relationship with me, the path there didn't run through my checking account. She said she understood. My dad has not called again. Maybe he's angry. Maybe he's ashamed. Maybe both. I've decided I can live with his silence for now in a way I couldn't have a few years ago, because somewhere along the line, I stopped needing his approval to know that I'm okay. My brother and I have talked 3 times since then. Real conversations, longer than we've had maybe ever. He told me something recently that I've been sitting with. He said that growing up, he used to think I was cold. That I didn't show emotion, didn't need things, didn't ask for help. He said he thought I just didn't feel things the way other people did. I told him I felt everything. I just learned very early that nobody was going to come if I called out, so I stopped calling out. He was quiet for a while. Then he said, I didn't know that. I believe him. That's the part that's hard to hold, the part where the people you're angry at aren't purely villains. My brother was shaped by the same household I was. He got more, yes. He was handed things I had to build from scratch. But he's also been operating inside a family dynamic he never had the distance to question. And now that he's questioning it, it's costing him something too. I don't have a perfectly resolved ending to offer you. My dad is not in treatment, as far as I know. My mom is living with the weight of decisions she didn't make, but also didn't stop. I am 31 years old with a spreadsheet on my laptop that has a line item labeled Family Loan, SEP, $22,000. Outstanding, and a formula that calculates the interest I'm not charging them but probably should be. I still talk to my mother. We're figuring out what that looks like without the old architecture. Without me being the dependable background figure and her being the woman who needs managing. It's awkward sometimes. It's more honest than anything we've had before. I told her recently that I'd spent most of my childhood feeling like I was running a race where everyone could see the finish line except me. That no matter how fast I went, I was always one